Welcome to Salaam Nerds Podcast. We do reviews and recaps of nerd culture, reality TV, and current events from this week.
Yo, it's the Salaam Nerds. My name is Dean, aka Watch the Dean. I'm here with my boy Chad.
We drop live episodes on YouTube on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. All episodes can also be found everywhere podcasts are found. Thank you to all our supporters. Please help us by subscribing and leaving a good review in Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Yo, Salaam Nerds. It's your boy Neebs, aka Watch with Neebs, and I'm here with my co-host Jeff, aka DJ Shirtless.
DJ Shirtless. Are you saying we should all go shirtless for this episode?
I was thinking,
No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Why would we do that? This is
Y'all do what y'all want, but I'm not.
This is not a Game of Thrones podcast. We're not doing that. Game of Thrones, maybe.
Oh my gosh, I was like, hold on, what?
No.
What are we actually seeing? I'm sorry, this is the wrong show, but yeah, that was.
I mean,
that was
shirtless is
awesome.
pretty tame from what we've been seeing at Game of Thrones. Like, I was like, oh, that's something else.
That's a whole milkshake.
Milkshake, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way to put it.
Yeah, that is the way to put it. Oh my god. All right, cool. Listen, welcome back to everybody. This is Salaam Nerds. We are capturing the Acolyte episode 6. And we got back with us who really loves this show, and that's our boy Swara. Swara, what's going on?
Thanks for having me back, man.
Yeah, man. You will defend this show to the death, and that's what I love having you on this show.
And listen, like I will accept like valid critiques. I have valid critiques of this episode,
Sure.
but like we'll get into it.
Ooh, I'm
No,
excited.
I still
Interesting.
enjoyed it, but like we'll get into it.
What?
I agree. Christine, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Always happy to be here. Thanks for bringing me back. I'm excited.
I know.
I love this episode, so I don't know. Maybe I was distracted, but it was a good episode.
I like to
I
see,
love
don't
it.
get me wrong. Yeah.
I was like,
I love
yes,
it.
yes. Mhm,
I wonder
exactly.
why.
Points were made. Points were made. Sense was being made. Plot was plotting. You know.
Plot was plotting.
Plot was plotting, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Jazz, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I am back this week for Acolyte.
Jazz is back, and not only that, me and Jazz are going to be hanging out this week. So, Jazz, we got to take some pictures for the podcast. We need some more
For sure.
pictures for the intro videos. In fact, Swara, if you're available, you can join us
Yeah.
in the intro video, and we want to make some new
I
pictures.
would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can do that Sunday, yeah.
Let's do a photo shoot. We're such influencers. We're gonna have a photo shoot and everything. Oh man.
or really it's like
Mhm.
we're just channeling all of our aunties and how many photos they want to take of,
I know.
friends and family friends and stuff.
I know. I have like people on the intro video that have been on the show, but like I talked to them like a few months later and they're like, no, we don't really watch your show. And I was just like, I'm taking you off. I'm taking
Oh,
you off.
no.
They're like, cause like, oh, we don't really like nerd stuff. We don't really like Star Wars. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, well,
whatever."
fuck you too.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
nerd podcast. Nerds only.
Oh man, we got some people on TikTok. We got some people on Instagram. Welcome everybody. We are going to talk about the show. Swara said he has some valid criticisms of the show, and Christine says she loved this show. Little switcheroo.
No,
Who-
just this episode. Just this episode. I still love the show overall.
Yeah. But-
And I enjoyed this episode. I'm not so
But
hard on
but it is a switcheroo from last week, which is interesting because we have a switcheroo in the actual show.
Exactly. That's like the best part. It was all set up.
Who's on the dark side
Yeah.
now, and who's on? But that's what I really love about
Mhm.
the show, because one of the things that I really love about
Neebs,
this episode,
what did I say? What did I say last episode
I don't
was
know.
going to
It
happen?
was an hour-long episode. What did you say? I don't remember.
No, I said they're going to do the switch
yeah.
of May and
Well,
Osha.
But not only do I love the Switch, I love how they're showing the Switch, because we've never really seen how seductive the dark side is before. And I don't mean that just because the dark side is shirtless. I meant like, but like the way he explains it to her, and I'm just like, hold up, man. Let him cook.
Like,
Making
yeah,
points.
he literally was making sense.
And
It was the same argument that you could make. I mean, Killmonger was crazy, but at the same time, was he wrong? The
right.
way,
Was he
like, you
wrong?
know what I mean?
Fair.
Like, it was a lot of terrible, terrible things happened that needed to be corrected.
I
And
know.
something obviously happened with him, and he's like, "This order needs help," and it does. And he's just like, "But they're saying that I can't exist." So, I mean, that's kind of from the last episode. But everything that he's saying, like, has some, like, has a grain of truth in it. It makes sense. It all comes together. There's a reason for him to be that way. It's not just anger.
Right? Exactly. And every time we've seen the dark side, it's just like, oh, someone's really mad, and because they're mad, they get attracted to the dark side. But this is like, no, the dark side sometimes make a lot of sense. And we see this in the real world because we see things like red pill ideology, where there's these like disenfranchised men who feel like the world isn't like for them anymore and things are changing around them. And they don't know how to adapt, and they get offered this path up to like, hey, this is how men should act, and this is how women should act, and we need to be dominant, and we need to be up. And it's seductive because, like, in a way, it kind of makes you feel good. And
Mm-hmm.
similar to what we saw in like Fight Club, and they use a line directly from Fight Club. It's like, only when you lose everything are you free. And that's the same line that Tyler Durden used in Fight Club. And I feel like these kind of like messages are very seductive to a lot of people, especially like men. And I feel like this show was kind of showing you that. It's showing you like there's space red pill ideology happening here, right? That's what the red lightsaber is.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I appreciate that take, and obviously, you know, they were pulling from that line you said, but I didn't really see it as, you know, I felt like it was like offering something to the disenfranchised, to be honest. Like, you know, May and Osha in this case, or Osha in this case, and how Kimmer was telling her, reiterating how the Jedi really have failed her and she failed the Jedi. And, you know, he was getting her to her breaking point, that being, you know, she wasn't good enough for the Jedi. And despite wanting to be part of them, despite giving her life over to them, they still failed her in some way. So it was more like, again, like this continuing thread of these systems are, or these institutions are set up to supposedly help and uplift you, but then they ended up failing you. So why don't you rage against the machine instead? You know what I mean? I guess it could be applied in like both those situations, like the red pillish situation and, you know, what I'm talking about, but it's interesting how it can be interpreted in different ways.
Yeah.
And also, it seems like it wasn't just he didn't even go straight to Rage Against the Machine. He's just saying you don't even understand your power. They're withholding information from you. You are a lot stronger than that. You know, you think you are because they're telling you, they're giving you false information, but you have access to something that is within you, part of you. You thought that was soul. No, that was you.
Yeah. And he said a lot of this naked, which makes a lot of good points.
Yeah, you know, Leslie Headland, she knows what she's doing. Actually, my friend Maggie Lovett of Collider just did an interview with Leslie Headland. You should check that out on Collider, where they specifically talk about the romance that's brewing between Kimmer and Osha. It's like, it is this enemies to lovers thing that is happening now that a lot of Star Wars fans out there are really digging.
Oh, me and Christine know we're Bridgerton fans. We know all about that.
Yes, this is the burn. This is the burn. But I love the symbolism, and he goes in dirty with that black robe, which was awesome. And then, see, he just rose, but then he goes into the water and he washes clean. And he comes back out and he's wearing white and gray pants. You know what I mean? So I did read something where I believe it was Leslie who said, we're talking about the costume specifically and about how this show is the villain show. You know what I mean? So they're essentially the main characters. We're looking from their point of view. We're seeing why. And obviously we're seeing who we thought was Acolyte is an Acolyte, you know, and she came out. She's wearing May's boots that she used to run around in. Yeah. And now she's wearing gray. So she's been wearing, you know, white or light colors the whole show. Now she's wearing gray. Now she's wearing dark gray. She's in that because she's in that in between place. So all of that was on purpose.
Yeah, we also not only are we talking about like how May is kind of being Osha is being seduced by the dark side, but we also see May be a little bit more lighthearted. Like we see her
Mhm.
get into this like Home Alone cartoonish like
Mhm.
interaction with like the tracker and Pip, and she's getting squirted in the face like
Basil.
Home Alone style, and
Mhm.
you see her like
That
scream
was
out, and
so disrespectful to her. I gotta say, that moment, I was like, why you
I'm
gotta
like,
do her dirty like this?
and I'm
Why?
just
And in her
like
eyes, she can lose her sight. Like
yeah,
what?
she comes off as like this like evil, like down to business kind of person, but we also have started to see her soften, right? And the
Mhm.
thing is, like, I feel like in the beginning it happened too fast and it was jarring because it happened when they were on Kofar and automatically she just decided to switch up real quick. But now we get to see it as it's happening progressively, right? And now they're showing her a little bit more lighthearted, which kind of makes me think that she may also go to the light side. It might not just
Mhm.
be like like you said, Tuara, the switcheroo. So I thought it's really interesting how they're showing
Mhm.
seduction from for the dark side, but for the light side, they're not showing like a type of seduction. They're just showing like a more organic possession of like how things are coming to light. And the one thing that I do have issues with this is that like they
Mhm.
set up scenes where we feel like we're going to get answers and then they don't give us
Right.
answers, and it pisses me off so much.
Yeah. I have to
I would.
admit this. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Christine.
I was just gonna say I want to go back to what you said about how Osha is not Osha. I'm sorry, May is now. Um, she's. It feels more like not a seduction, but more like a healing
Mm,
because
Mhm.
he
yeah.
sat her down and said, "No, I've thought about what I've going to tell you for 16 years, and you're going to listen." And then juxtapose that conversation to where the stranger is saying, "You shouldn't trust me, but you should trust yourself." So they're both about to, those conversations are kind of what pulls them in such different directions. So I feel like a lot's going to happen between Soul and May because she's been looking for that. Because as soon as she knew her sister was alive, she, oh, that's all that really mattered to me. And then whatever they did that hurt her, she could be healed from it. But if you look at it, actually, Osha's the more angry one because Osha is not
Mhm.
ready to
Mhm.
forgive May. She is
Mm,
not ready to let go of anything. And even when she's wakes up at the stranger, she only expresses anger. She's like, "You killed my friends," all this other stuff. But at the same time, when Soul lost all those people, you see the devastation. You don't see any devastation or hurt or just like, with I'm sorry, I hear myself somewhere. It's throwing me off. Um because she's known yours since she was a youngling. I know Jackie she does not, but she had a connection with her. And even if she didn't know all those Jedi, you went on a mission where X amount of people all died in front of you. Like that's traumatizing. But she's not showing any of that the way that Soul is. She's just full on anger. So what was my original point? Oh yeah, my original point was that we're seeing May like really being healed to be brought to the light side while she's
yeah.
wearing like Osha's whiter outfit.
Yeah, it's like seduction versus therapy. We're like, oh, which
Hmm.
one should you take?
If the Jedi had therapy, they wouldn't have so many Sith. I'm just saying.
That's funny. Suara, what were
Straight
your
up.
thoughts? What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I agree with your critique that it felt like we were finally gonna get answers, but it was frustratingly pulled back. I felt as though, you know, I after like episode 5, which was incredible. I think all of our favorite episode. That this was
Hmm.
definitely like a sort of debrief from that, a sort of like reeling from the shock of what happened and stuff. I feel as though, in terms of the reveal of the mystery, we should have at least had some sort of revelation, if not the
Yes.
full truth. Like, at least a nugget that would get us through the next thing, but we didn't get that, which I felt perplexed by. I felt as though, like you said, Neebs, like we were about to get it, but the show held back. And I think like this falls in the reason you posted a video about this, I believe a TikTok about this, about the episode run times and how
Yeah.
short they
Yep.
are, and like how that's not letting some of these episodes, not all of them, just a few, like fully be able to breathe and be the absolute best they can be. So I did feel, I hate to say it, but I did feel a bit of tedium with some parts of this episode, even though I still really enjoyed it, and I loved especially the dynamic between Kamir and Osha. But other than that, I'm just like, come on, Soul, just tell us what happened.
Tell
just
us
like
already,
mention
right?
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
totally
think we
agree.
need this breath though, because I
Sure.
think the entire point is that you don't change sides, you don't heal. It doesn't happen immediately. It's not going to happen like that.
Yeah,
There
of course.
is some progression that needs to happen. And another thing, just on the like production side of it, it really does feel like kind of like a movie that's being stopped.
Yeah.
Like it'll feel a lot better watching it when you can binge it after we rewatch and
agree.
rewatch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I do want to point out that we did get something else though, because we got more background with the stranger with Kamir.
That's true.
Because we saw, I don't know if you want to skip ahead to the end, but we did see his back, and we saw somebody who has a weapon who could have created.
Yeah, we did.
So I feel like they're giving us. So we're getting something. He absolutely, like I said last week, he absolutely was a Jedi. He knew too much about those rules.
Right.
He was like, he admitted it this week that he was a Jedi. Homegirl, what's her name? Vanestra. She was looking sketch the whole episode. She was like, "Oh, where they at? Oh, who they at? Who did it?" No, because
Christina,
she was
you just made that connection for me, and now my mind is blown a bit. So now I'm like, hyped, so thank you for that.
yeah. So she's on there being like, because he's like, oh, because the other guy who's with her, the guy with the like red hair and pulled his hair back.
Yeah.
He was like, well, if Mr. Soul didn't go bad, who could have done it? And she's like, I don't know who could have done it, but you can tell she knew exactly who could have done it. Like, I think she was his master, and I think she did that to him. Either she pulled a Luke, who was like saw Darkness and Ben and pushed him too far too fast, like because he attacked her. I mean, because he attacked him in his sleep.
Yeah,
and then like she tried to cover it up or whatever, or like she just saw it and like because. At this point in the Jedi, they don't seem to have any flexibility. They don't really seem to have any real compassion to like deal with things as opposed. So, like I said, they just really need therapy. Like he could have just been going through something that they just need to work out and it would have been fine. Yeah. But they're just like, no sentiment, no, none of that. Whatever happened, I feel like it was her fault and she knows it.
I agree, and I want to add to that because you brought up a great point. While like, it might have been something like Luke and Kylo Ren, which is really interesting because they talked about how Vanestra cannot or has a hard time going through hyperspace, and what the story is that when she goes through hyperspace, she sometimes has visions, which not. Unlike the visions that Luke has. And we also think that he might be the first Knight of Ren, which is also a reference to Kylo Ren. And we've been hearing Kylo Ren's theme song throughout this entire episode and last episode. So there's a lot of like breadcrumbs being connected here.
Yeah, now, absolutely.
One thing I did want to say when you spoke about production, I know this might be one of my hottest takes, but I really do feel like this show was meant to go in a different direction, and then somebody took it, chopped it up, and put it together, and we ended up with this mishmash almost, like where some scenes work really well and other scenes don't, and then you see how quickly someone moves from one ideology almost to another ideology very quickly. I think like the pacing of the show is also off because it was essentially redone after the fact it was shot.
Well, Disney's known for reshoots, right? They're like, film it now and we'll do reshoots later and figure things out. And that's why so much of Marvel doesn't feel organic. It feels very like mishmash, right? So I can totally see them doing that. I do think that this is what they do. They have a full movie and then somebody, Kathleen Kennedy or somebody comes up to them and goes, okay, that's great. Give me 6 episodes out of it. And then they have to go back and they have to re-chop it and they have to add fluff in some parts, and then they have to add like, a lot of things happening really fast in other parts. And that's why it doesn't feel like a TV show. Whereas things like Loki, Miss Marvel, and The Mandalorian, some of the episodes are almost like self-contained episodes, which kind of makes you feel like, oh, this works. In fact, I might even blame The Mandalorian for all of this because The Mandalorian was the first show that came out on Disney Plus. They had 6 self-contained episodes. They were really short, about 30 to 35 minutes, and it worked. But because The
Mhm.
Mandalorian was such a unique story, it was like this guy goes through this part of town, he solves a little issue there, and then he goes on to the next part of town, like an old Western. And it worked
Mm-hmm.
because every story was a self-contained story. But now what they're doing, like, oh, that works so well, let's do it for everything else. But it doesn't work for TV shows that don't have self-contained stories and every episode is a to be continued. It doesn't work
Yep.
that way. And I think that's one of the main problems that we're having with a lot of these shows.
You see, I didn't really even clock that because, as we talked about before, I'm very selective with what Star Wars shows I watch. I haven't watched Ahsoka. I haven't kept up with The Mandalorian because, it's just not to my taste. Andor, I think, as you're describing with this phenomenon, is the key distinguished.
It doesn't follow that
of all of
format.
these. Doesn't follow that format.
It
As you
doesn't.
said before, Neebs, it has those 3-episode arcs and it works very well. I think that Marvel series, by and large, I hear what you're saying about some of the episodes and some of these Marvel series being self-contained, but as I personally found them, I found them like very much chopped up movies overall. And I think that's unfortunately applied to some Star Wars series too, as it seems apparent. Because again with Acolyte, I'm still really enjoying it. It's probably my favorite Star Wars series that we've gone out so far. Even while I recognize Andor being an objectively better and well-made series overall, I just this is where it can get frustrating, where you want more, or maybe 2 episodes should have been 1. I didn't have that critique for episodes 4 and 5. I may have it for episodes 6 and 7, depending on what episode 7 will look like. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about.
My thing is okay, they've given us all of these episodes and they built up all this thing, but they didn't really answer enough. And they only have 2 episodes left to answer everything. So to have a thrilling conclusion and have all the answers revealed, it's going to be a lot in 2 episodes, especially 2 episodes that are only 35 minutes. I think that's going to be very difficult and it's going to leave people unsatisfied. Whereas if you watch maybe the last 3 episodes in one shot, it might actually feel the opposite. It might actually feel very satisfying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're kind of setting yourself up to, like you said, you don't think they're going to do a good job with it already. But how much do we really need to know? We just need a story from Soul, and we need a story from Kamar and about Vanessa. I think it would be very easy to do this in 2 episodes, even though they have been really short. I think this is one of the few times where I haven't really been frustrated when it ended, because at the end when she puts it on and she's breathing and it sounds like Darth Vader, I'm like, oh my gosh, it needed to end there, unless they were going to go further with her.
I don't mind. I don't mind the ending, but I still think it was short. It's probably one of the shorter episodes that we've had, and I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more. But I like the way it ended. I do like the way it ended with the helmet. I was like, "Ooh, that was cool."
The last 3, I think, have all been about 30 minutes. They're all been about the same. And this one I was just locked in. So
the last 3 have been 27 minutes actually, and the longest episode was my favorite episode, was the 3rd episode where we found out about the witches.
Oh yeah,
that's the longest episode they've had.
That was so nice.
It's probably tied or my second favorite episode 5. That ending, I chills, and I was also scared in that moment. I was scared for Osha. I was scared is something going to appear and attack her while she's in that helmet?
Yeah,
it was like a horror film almost, and you just didn't know what to expect exactly. You just felt that this was ominous, and it was very well directed and written and acted by Amandla. So I did like that ending a lot. But yeah, I think overall, I didn't dislike this episode. I want to be abundantly clear about that. I just wanted a bit more from it. Otherwise, I give it a B plus. It's not one of my. It's sort of again, this sort of cool down after the height of episode 5. So I can definitely forgive it, especially as we'll see, as you said, Christine, how the next 2 episodes will go. I expect and anticipate to be satisfied with this. It's also really interesting because it could take from a often seen Netflix formula with shows where they use the penultimate episode to explain almost everything, and then you have the finale.
Right.
So that could be like what we're getting
Like the
with the
fallout.
episode 7 and 8. Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, listen, 8 episodes still better than the 6 episode format, so there's a little bit more wiggle room. So maybe it'll come together. So I'm pretty hopeful. What were your thoughts about Pip being factory reset? Is he dead? What does
that
that
hurt my
mean?
heart.
When
Oh
she
my
said that,
gosh.
she held 2 buttons like with an iPhone. I'm like, what the fuck?
I was like, wait a minute, is this Apple? It reminds me of in Obi-Wan when little Tink Tink, the little thing that opens up, Leia's little droid, when he had put the little thing inside, it had red eyes.
Yeah.
And so if you notice on Pip, it had little red eyes too. And I was just like, so does that mean we can get him back? But I know she didn't put something in there.
C-3PO also has red eyes in Return of the Rise of the Skywalker at the end, where he has to like learn to speak language. So it's actually common. That's like they have red eyes when that happens.
So hopefully there's like a scrub or somewhere we can just get a little Pip back, because I was watching a behind the scenes or just Amanda talking, and she was talking about how they were interviewing puppeteers, and then there was one that really connected with her, and just how like cute and like sweet and naive he made Pip, and he told them that he models Pip off of his newborn. I was just like, but he's always working, so they wouldn't even be shooting, but he's always off in the corner somewhere, like animating Pip, so she feels like she really has a connection with the Pip. Like,
which is really interesting because in the storyline, that's how Soul kind of figures out that it's May and not Osha, because of the way he's handling Pip. So I think that was interesting.
I just wanted to bring up, because I was watching it, I was like, see, if it was Star Trek, we would have had a universal translator, and everybody would be able to hear Basil, and we would already known that that May was on the ship.
That is true. That is true. But I think Soul kind of knew. He kind of knew a little bit, but he was kind of still like feeling it out a little bit. But
he was devastated. I think he was. I think he was entirely too emotional to realize fully, because he never would have left Osha behind if he'd known that it wasn't her. But he was getting little inklings, but is it because of the tragedy that we just witnessed? You know what I mean? He has to kind of work through all that while still trying to work through himself. Like, I lost my whole like, just everything happened. This young Padawan that I brought, I lost her. This young Jedi who finally made it, I lost him, and all of my friends, and maybe other people who used to be his Padawan, or people he just known since they were younger.
Like so, that dinosaur
he's just
book.
going through a lot.
It's that dinosaur book. All my friends are dead. Like that. That's his
oh my gosh. Oh my God. No. So I think he didn't know right away, but he definitely was picking it up.
Yeah.
During that conversation. And then I was just wondering what he thought when she wasn't upset at all, when she was just very stoic. But maybe he knows Osha, because we saw Osha with the stranger, with Kamir, and she wasn't very upset either. So
it's really, really interesting how we see that, because like he kind of does this like thing about like how he should have seen it, and then she says like, well, our minds are clouded sometimes, like we see what we want to see, we believe what we want to believe, and I'm kind of like, she's opening up to the idea that she may also be believing what she wants to believe, right? So it's one of those things that I feel like that conversation was really interesting. But then on the opposite side, we see the same conversation in a different way happening with Osha and the stranger, because he starts talking about the dark side and what it leads, and then he's like, it's semantics, it's the same shit, like whatever, which is really, really interesting, because it almost treats the Jedi like a orthodox religion, whereas like the Force is like God, and then there's like 3 different religions that like believe in that same Force, but they're all like, no, you got to believe it in my way, you got to believe it in this way, right? Which is like it's the same as we have in real life with religions, where the Jedis are like, no, the only way you can use the Force is you got to do it this way, whereas some people are like, the only way you can pray to God is doing it this way, which is very like, it parallels what happens in real life with religion. And I find that to be really interesting. And sometimes it is just semantics. And the main thing, the Force, is, available to everybody. It's just one of those things that I find really interesting.
All in all,
so it's interesting.
Troy, you go first. You started.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks. All in all, the best Star Wars stories are about that quote unquote gray zone.
Yeah.
It's all about just breaking out of those dogmas of the Jedi and the Sith.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned in a previous episode, Knights of the Old Republic, both 1 and 2, but especially Knights of the Old Republic 2. And it's brilliant diving into an untangling of the orthodoxies and critically analyzing why the Jedi and Sith do what they do and how you should be navigating yourself through all of this.
Yeah.
It's what we had in, at least to some degree, The Last Jedi. I saw a comment the other day from someone saying that The Last Jedi was trying to be Knights of the Old Republic too, and honestly, I do agree with that. As someone who enjoyed The Last Jedi, I enjoyed Knights of the Old Republic too much more, especially now after the sequel trilogy was basically a dud, at least in terms of its messaging. And I just remember, like in Legends books, of them of having certain characters like in the New Jedi Order talk about how, hey, the way things were done before with the old Jedi Order, we shouldn't be doing the same thing. Sometimes we do need to be on the offensive. Sometimes we do need to go more into the nuances of this and recognize that, hey, maybe it was the Jedi Order's like stoic and stagnant ways and practices that let them self-collapse, just like the Republic. So that's when I say I want Star Wars to move forward, this is a huge part of what I mean. That I want it to just break down this like these rigid structures, and again, critically analyze what this is all about, how we should actually be engaging with the Force. I want characters, KOTOR fans will recognize when I say I want characters like Jolie Bindo, Revan, Bastila, the Jedi Exile. Like, if you play those games, you know what I'm talking about. Like, this is where Star Wars can be at its most resonant and powerful, and I feel that with the Acolyte. I feel that with May and Osha. I feel that like with the Witch Coven, even though we only got one episode with them, I'm like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I need. I feel it with Kamir, like of him, being ostensibly a dark sider, understanding that, hey, he's not in this simply to like conquer the universe or whatever. He just wants to be able to practice his power the best way he can. And in a way that feels like organic to someone. Like, I believe, as a Muslim, I mean, not like obviously comparing, being Muslim to like, Kamir, or like any dark side or anything like that. Like, Allah forgive me, like for, ever potentially making that comparison. But just to say that as a religious person, at least as I approach it, you're in it because of your genuine belief and faith in your religion, in God, and not to like force it upon yourself or force it on anyone else, but to make that active choice. And I think that's the most powerful thing. So seeing these characters make these choices for themselves outside of the exact rigid dogma that really just seems to be because of society and not because of their sincere beliefs. That's wonderful to see. That's so compelling. And I hope Star Wars does so much more of this.
Yeah, I agree. Christine, what were you going to say?
So I read an article once that said the reason he created Star Wars is that he was a new Christian and he wanted to make a story about God, but no one would see a movie about God. So that's actually why it mirrors religion so closely. And so I know, I don't know how familiar you are with Christianity, or the Holy Trinity and who the Holy Spirit is. The Holy Spirit essentially is the force that is here, that moves within us and like gives us power to do things through God. And so that's what the Force is. That was what the Force was modeled after. And so what you have is what I see also, like you said, in society where over time, like I don't worship God because I'm Christian, the same way that my grandparents do, or the way that my parents do, because it does change over time. We gain more knowledge, and that knowledge gets passed down, and we gain more experience. And just like, or even like say in the Black community, how mental health was looked at a certain way, and how now we're trying to say no, it's okay to go see,
Yeah.
the therapist, and like just how things change over time. We're
Mhm.
getting more knowledge, we get more experience, and
Mhm.
so it's not that God or the forces ever change. It's our experience or our
Understanding.
knowledge or understanding our how we interact.
Mm.
And then my thing was always when people who have been hurt by the church. This is getting really religious, but
No,
people who have
go
been
for
hurt
it.
by it. For me, it's always been about as soon as you so like God is perfect. The first the in Star Wars, the Force is perfect.
Mhm.
It's people that aren't perfect. There is
Yeah.
no human except for me, Jesus, that ever lived that was perfect. And so as soon as you add your humanity, or any sentient being in Star Wars into it, there's going to be problems because no one is going to, there's going to be perfect. So they're adding on their own, like ideologies or, like you said, structures. We're doing this, this, and this. Whereas, as opposed to listening to the Force, as opposed to listening to God or doing what God told you or where God told you to go, you're doing it because everyone else has done it this way. This is the way that I need to do it. So yeah, I do think there needs to be more of an openness and more of learning. And then going back to what you said before, I love the show because, like you said, with the witches and with Khmer, it never made sense to me when I was watching like the original trilogy how it seemed like a really contained story. There's this huge galaxy, but we only see like maybe a handful of planets.
Yeah.
And like I remember one scene, and I'm not trying to dog it. I'm just saying I saw it really late in life. It's like I already seen the prequels before I saw the original trilogy. Um, and then you see Darth Vader come in and just, or somebody comes in the room and just says, "Oh, we destroyed the council." What council? There's a council? Like, huh? What are you talking? You know what I mean? Like, they don't show any of that. So if there's a huge galaxy with multiple systems and multiple planets, there's got to be people who fall through the cracks. We even know that Anakin felt was on an outer rim planet, so never was tested as like a really, really young child. They just happened to run into him. There
Yeah.
has to be pockets of people in the galaxy who never were found by the Jedi, who still have access to the Force, who have found their own way to use it or
Yeah.
have access to it, who would teach their own things, or people who have been disenfranchised, people who were part of the order. Now, my example has always been before he did turn to a Sith, but Count Dooku,
Mhm.
because he was able to leave peaceably. Because they're like, oh no, he's a former Jedi, don't say
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z about him. Be careful. So you are allowed to leave the Jedi if they don't think you're turning dark, I guess. So there's people like that out there who could be starting their own things. But yeah, I just love that this is an expansion, that we're seeing people outside of just right on Coruscant and then Jedi Temple. So yeah, that's just been really amazing to see, just to have them expand on this actual universe.
Yeah. I love that this is turning into a sermon right now. It's like
I
everyone's
was
getting
like,
a
I'm gonna bring y'all to church for
We're
me.
getting deep.
let's do it. I love that. I love that. The other thing that like I find very interesting is that like his desire to find a pupil, and I want to know why, because we know the Sith have the rule of two, but like where does that rule of two come from? Because we've seen like Count Dooku, and we've seen Palpatine and all these like Sith characters who have had these acolytes and they've turned on them and stuff like that, and I it's really interesting to see that and how it relates to the power of two, because they talked about the power of two in for the twins, but it also applied to a Sith and an acolyte,
Mhm.
which I think is really interesting, and I'd be really interested to see how that comes together, because that would be really, really cool.
Yeah, right now it kind of seems like he just doesn't want to be alone. He just wants to share it with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not trying to build a society like the witches kind of have like a whole coven. He's just like, no, I just need one other person.
Yeah.
Just needs like maybe a partner, not
Mhm.
just in the Force, but in other areas.
Yeah. His mind
Yeah.
keeps telling him no, but the Force. The Force is
Gonna
telling
be
him
yes.
yes. Oh man.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I was looking this up, or I found this out, that you would expect the planet that they're on, it says like unknown planet, this
Yeah.
ocean planet with islands and stuff. You might assume like, oh, that's Octo from The Last Jedi.
Did cross
and they're just
my
not
mind,
saying
yeah.
it yet. However, I saw like people say online, this could, it's a legend thing and maybe it's there or not, but there are some clues. apparently there was a planet in Legends that Darth Plagueis was on,
Yes.
along with his master Darth Tenebris. That was, an ocean planet with a lot of rocky islands, and Cortosis was mined heavily from this like planet. So it's like something you should like. Sorry, something's weird's happening with my audio.
Oh, I thought you were getting an Amber Alert. You're about to like dress up as Batman, go save somebody.
No, I literally just got an Amber Alert. Like, oh, sorry, I got something playing. Sorry, 1 second.
No worries. But yeah, I did hear that theory about it being that island with Dr. Plagueis, and so yeah, I could see that happening. I know a lot of
people... vein of metal in the cave wall.
Yeah,
he was. Did you see that? You saw that shot? Yeah.
Yep, I saw that. Yeah. No, I thought that was really, really cool. What did you guys think about the jump scare with Jackie just dead on the floor and then George just dead?
Emotional damage. Oh my gosh.
I was like, why they do that to us?
Unnecessary. And then the show going right after, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Listen, we just need absolute confirmation they were dead, okay?
No, they're not coming back.
No, they dead.
It made me forgive him a little bit that, like, I guess if that's protocol that you're going to send somebody, a team out, like you need to get out of Dodge. So you're I'm talking about Soul, because I was just like, why just leave everybody there? I was so upset.
Yeah.
But if it's protocol to like go get back up because you don't know if you're safe, and then they'll send people out for the bodies, and I was like, okay, well at least there's a plan.
Yeah.
Oh
but
my gosh,
I find it very interesting that Vernestra does not give that other Padawan an idea that it might be a Sith. He lets him believe that it might have been Soul who did this, right? And she's like, oh, that's quite an accusation, saying that she doesn't believe it, but she's not giving him any other alternative. And that kind of really goes to the fact that this whole thing might end up being a cover-up, and they'll never know about the Sith.
1000%.
Also, I really feel like she's covering up for herself too, because if she is going to say that it's the stranger or Khmer, whatever his name was, when he was a Jedi, then she has to admit to her part in it. Yeah. So whether she covered it up originally, whether she caused it, so she's not ready yet. So she doesn't believe. She knows it's not Soul, but she doesn't want to give any evidence to someone else that could lead back to her.
He also said that he was an old Jedi, which is also interesting to me, because like, how old is this guy? Because he doesn't look that
I
old.
was thinking that, like, is he human? Like, is he just humanoid? Because, sir, because
Vernestra is a couple of hundred years old, and if she was his whatchamacallit master, that would make him quite old too. Possibly.
Wow. That could be quite the revelation at the end. That would be definitely mind-blowing.
Also, it would explain how he might have a power that keeps him young and not being able to die, which is something the Plagueis was messing with. We did see him force heal somebody. I don't know.
Did we see him heal her? Because she still had the bandage on. So I thought he just kind of turned it over. So at first I was looking to see did he really heal her, but it kind of seemed like he just kind of turned her over, or just looking at it. So
maybe he semi-healed her. I don't know. Maybe it's like, alcohol wipes, but it's not like complete healage. I don't know.
Just make sure you don't bleed out right here, and then I'll take you back, give you a bandage.
Yeah.
What's that? Like triage? Like field triage or something?
Exactly. What do you guys think about her whip? And I don't mean her ride. I mean like her actual whip.
That was pretty cool, actually.
So badass. I like it was the first time I've ever seen a light whip in action. Other than like maybe a few comics back in Legends days with Lumia, the Dark Lady of the Sith, wielding against Luke Skywalker, and I just thought it looked really cool. Not sure like how practical it is in battle, especially if you're deflecting blaster bolts and stuff, but I thought it looked really cool.
Well, I heard that it can do both. It's like it has two modes, kind of like how Ezra can turn his into a gun, but also into a lightsaber. So I think it does both, which would make it really cool. But I also heard that it's frowned upon to make your weapon do that. So I wonder how she gets away with it, which is really interesting. But it also gave me Indiana Jones vibes, which is also a Lucas like thing.
Not a fan.
Oh,
Well, Han Solo is in both.
Sure.
that's true. That's true. I mean, I think the construction was really well done. I
Yeah.
personally, I don't know. I didn't like it,
Fuck's
and I don't know if I'm just like in a really black place right now because I was watching Clipped, but I was like, I was like, it's giving slavery. I already got to call you Jedi Master. I can't like it. I can't. I'm sorry.
Well, I believe in one of the comics, it is used by a slave master in one of the comics. I think.
No,
that's
yeah, but yeah,
true.
between his back, because if you don't know what Clip is, LeVar Burton is in it, and LeVar was talking about his role as Kunta Kinte.
Yeah.
And then we see Kamir's back, and then we see the whip, and I'm just like, oh no. I'm just like, it's all just happening too close together.
That is a very great point. This is why we're glad we have you on this show. We're our blind spots.
I was like, ooh, I don't want to. Well, because someone asked, what would you rather have? And that was made me think, I wouldn't ever want the whip. I just wouldn't.
No.
Which it doesn't always make me feel that way, because in Kingsman, Pedro had a whip and it like didn't bother me at all. So I just think it's just like association. Too much is happening like all at once.
At least they gave it to a green person. I don't know if that helps.
It depends. No, it was the scar on the back that's ruined it for me. Like, no, we can't do that.
It was
now the whip itself, like there have been other exotic weapons throughout Star Wars canon. Like this one specifically came from the 2021 The High Republic: A Test of Courage novel. And in it, they showed Venestra like modifying her saber when she was way younger so it could work as both a standard saber and a whip. It's like this is just historically like in Star Wars history. Whips have been around, so this isn't exactly new per se.
true.
Is the first one we've seen on screen though? I feel like
this is the first one we've seen on screen. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it does look cool, like visually, is what I'll say. But I totally get your point. I could see why it'd be like, interesting. I don't know. We'll see. What do you guys think about the helmet being a sensory deprivation kind of thing? Is also what people, based off the technology that they used to use younglings to teach them how to use the Force. I thought that was really cool. And the fact that like Khmer was basically fighting all these people blind the whole time, you're like, oh shit. Because sometimes you're like, you see a mask and you just assume they can see through it, even though like, and they probably can't. But then you actually go see and you see the little slits and you're like, oh, it couldn't see anything. It was all just like on vibes.
On vibes. No, I love that. And I love that he made that point to where it's just him and the Force, where he's just channeling it. And that's where his like quick reactions are coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was really powerful. I thought, especially when we saw her put it on and sat with her, like just in it.
Which is really interesting because when he says like, what do you see? He's like, it's just you and the Force and what you bring with you, which is what Yoda said exactly to Luke Skywalker when he went into the cave, right? He goes, you don't need your weapons there. It's just what you bring with you. It's what's going to be there. And I do see a lot of like parallels between Yoda and the Stranger and Luke and Osha, because like Yoda also acted all silly willy and not serious when he first met Luke to see if he was kind of worthy, and we see Khmer acting like this bumbling fool, and then he kind of switch up on him, and then he's dropping these like wise buckets of knowledge, and you're kind of like, oh wait, this person is actually smart. They actually do know what they're doing. And I kind of do see some parallels with Yoda and the Stranger. It's just not in the way you would think.
Right. I actually think he's doing it on purpose because he kept himself hidden with May and how like kind of disastrous with her betraying him and him feeling he has to kill her now. So with Osha, one, she already knows who he is, but he's like not just physically, but he really does like just bear himself like his soul. Like this is what I truly am looking for, and just having real conversations with her in ways he obviously could not have ever had them with May. So I think that was on purpose for him, like just to be more open to see how like can this be the way to getting my acolyte, to getting the power of two.
Yeah. But I did notice that when he said that, there's also anger and passion, he looked right dead in her eyes when he said passion. I was like, oh, damn. Oh, damn, bro.
All I'm going to say is Osha's stronger than me.
I mean, she did glance. Did y'all not notice a glance when she was like, she definitely looked like, I mean, it's okay.
We both in Game of Thrones. Whatever.
But I liked when he was pushing her. Just to like really feel how, like basically feel her feelings, just to sit in her anger. Like, no, this is what did you come here to do something? This is what you are here to do. This is what you wanted. Stop trying to suppress yourself. You're not a Jedi. Why do you keep trying to follow their rules? How are you actually feeling? What are your true desires? And he was just saying, you can't. And I like that he's just so bossy. He knows he can beat her. That's why he's not like trying to hold it back. But it kind of reminded me, even though
for it.
he's like, no, I mean, you can. Well, he's not going to force her to stay because he wants somebody who's going to be there willingly, right? And who actually will do that. But then, if you're going to stay, if you're here for a reason, like, here's what I can offer you. Here's what I can show you. I can let you explore this part of you that you've been trying to suppress. This part of you that got you kicked out of the Jedi, even though you keep saying you weren't. We both know what actually happened. That's kind of what he's saying to her, because I was thrown away too. And she's like, and then it goes to that reveal of what his Jedi mastered, and she's just like, oh. So she's just really thinking on all these things, and I really feel like that's just like turning within her, and that's why she's in that dark gray.
Honestly, I'm like maybe like 2 or 3 sentences away of just being Team Stranger all the way through.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, I'm already there. Like, sign me up. I'll be a sip.
They have the cooler wardrobe anyway. But we'll
definitely they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking about that. I was just noticing. I was like, everybody, all the Jedi that we've seen have the same exact robes, and I was like, has it ever been this way? So I know definitely that Obi-Wan and Anakin had 2 different colors. Like I thought you just had it was just like a style of robes, but everyone had the same exact colors and the same exact layers. I was like, ew.
It's because they're like cops, right? It's like cop uniforms almost at this point.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
What will fascinate me is how they will do this cover up. I just like, I feel like more Jedi are gonna die. I mean, I don't think. I mean,
they all die.
I mean, yeah.
There's not many left that we care about.
I mean, Soul is a big one, I think. Like, I know there are a lot of Soul fans out there. He might kick it by the end of this season, to be honest. Which also, like, I will, like, for a pure production standpoint, it is an effective way of, like, not having to pay, like, these really famous actors for another season if it does get another season.
Yeah.
As well as like having a compelling ending. It's interesting how it will end and how that cover up will happen. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
If it really does get a second season, though, the cover up might not happen yet. We might not see all of the deaths. Like it might be kind of partially, in fact.
Right, but the thing is, like, they don't know whether they're going to get another season.
Yeah, I heard them say that they're wrapping up this season as if it's a self-contained thing with just a little bit left over where they could possibly make a season 2. But it will be like a self-contained story where you should be satisfied with all the answers you're getting. And they did say that we will have 2 sits. There are going to be 2 sits in this. So we already know one is Khmer. So who's the other one? Is it Osha? Or is it someone we haven't seen yet?
If it's someone we haven't seen, that would be so dissatisfying, though. Like, at this point, we're on this journey with Osha, and I really feel like this is her journey to being an acolyte.
Yeah.
Like, she's the main character. I think she's the title character. I think this is, like, really just all her story. Like, she's going to have like I was saying before, all these things are going to keep compounding, and it just really makes sense to her.
Yeah,
I really think that's the way it's going to go.
I had a question. This might be a dumb question, but like, has Acolyte always been the word for like assist Padawan, or had there never been a word for that, or had there been a different word for that?
They only ever say apprentice.
Yeah.
Yeah, apprentice.
I've heard apprentice.
Yeah. Ah, interesting. Okay. So yeah, maybe Acolyte is the more accurate term.
Or maybe it changes over time. You never know.
Yeah.
Oh, I did hear one really good thing is that this is the most popular Star Wars show under only Obi-Wan. So even more popular than even like more watched than Mandalorian. So it's looking really good for them to get a season 2.
Oh,
yeah.
damn.
Yeah, it's doing better.
Interesting.
That's why they were talking about like ignoring the online hate. Because like the views and everything, because like they're saying not that it doesn't affect them and that they don't like it, but they're still watching the numbers. Yeah, and it's the most popular.
That's what matters at the end of the day.
Obi-Wan.
People still hate watching it. They claim they're not watching it anymore, but yeah, they'll still watch it. Star Wars got their number.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I hope it continues.
I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but I did had to leave for a minute there. Vanestra, she has been skirting rules all over the place, especially with like the Senate, the High Order. Like, are we not sure she might be a Sith as well? Like,
we don't know.
I don't think she's a Sith, but I think that she's institutionally so devoted to the Jedi that she'll do anything to protect them, including a cover up, including quote unquote trimming undesirables in the order.
Well, that's so different than who she is in the literature, right? She's very like, I'm all about the Force and not the actual bureaucracy of the Jedi. And now
how old is she in the literature?
But that's the thing, like
young. She's young, very young.
So that's like 200 years ago, right?
Yeah. Could be like 100 years ago. Yeah.
It's been hard.
Yeah.
Damn. Like, yeah.
But like also
like, yeah, so go ahead.
Even if she is like all about the Force and not against bureaucracy, right? She's also kind of lining up with that as well right now. She's like, I will do the bad things because fuck bureaucracy. I'm gonna do it because the Force requires me to do it, or some bullshit like that.
That could also be true. That could also be true.
Religious fundamentalism, right there.
Because even she gave me bad vibes, even in the beginning. If you remember, because she goes to Soul and is like, she's basically telling him, no, we need to get this done quickly and quietly because this could, like, the way that it could affect the Jedi. Like, she's not interested in finding out the truth. She's not interested. I mean, when she gets evidence, she's at least like, okay, no, we believe her now. But she was not interested at all in hearing anything other than, no, it matches the description. We get this little girl right now. You gonna be okay with that? You know, she was not really about listening to the Force or anything like that at that point.
That's true.
Well, I will say, I think it's coming together for me that she's attached to the dogma of the Jedi and protecting the Jedi as an institution at all costs. And like for her, that could be a way of perceiving and serving, in her view, the will of the Force. So that's how she rationalizes it to herself. Again, religious fundamentalism.
Yeah, so there's this thing in Christianity called a lukewarm Christian. A lot of like when you're new, when you're young and you're on fire for God, and, you know, and then after a while, sometimes you're going to church and it becomes a habit. Sometimes you're going and doing the things and it's just a habit, and then you start kind of focusing on the law more than we're focusing on relationship with God. And that's where she could be in her relationship with the Force. So
Very
so to say, I love talking about God with the Force. This is pretty cool.
you all about it, man. I'm all about that. I felt like there's a lot of parallels there, and it's a good way to kind of relate. Like, what's the point of movies and TV shows if we can't use them to relate to things happening in the real world, right? Like, for example, like, you know, there's real life genocides happening, and we see resistance fighters in Star Wars, literally. And if you can't put two and two together and be like, oh, maybe this place is a very fascist state that wants to kill a lot of people for almost the same type of reason. If you can't put two and two together, then what's the point? You're just turning your brain off and watching a bunch of dots on the screen flicker.
That's another
That's why we have
why
reality TV neebs.
Which you will see me on this August.
But I think it's the reason why representation in media is so important, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to forget who actually are the ones being harmed when the main character is white. Or like how
Mm.
in Harry Potter, Hermione's the Muggle-born, but Hermione's a white girl. So like it's supposed to be, kind of a play on people who are like minorities or people who are,
Yeah.
but the writer as a white woman and then the actress, you know what I mean? Not that you don't get anything as a white woman, but it's not the same thing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there's so the things you never experience is what you're trying to portray. Or
Yeah.
even like with X-Men, because it started back in the 60s. So the X-Men originally were all white. Before I believe like 75 when introduced like Storm. But like the whole point was to like kind of mirror like the civil rights movement at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, there are writers who had like a good intention, but at the same time that was never their struggle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now you have readers and watchers who can identify with them because they look like me, so they're not making a connection about how people who look different get treated differently, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's why it
In
needs to
fact-
be no, this person is a minority, this is what's going
That
on.
might
Well, global
be-
majority, but
Yeah, that might be part of the reason for a lot of the backlash, because they like cannot see themselves as somebody who's a bad guy. So they're like, "Oh, I hate the show because they're portraying me as bad," but they're not even consciously thinking that, you hate the show because you think they're making you think you're bad. Rather, they just think, "I just don't like the show because of X, Y, and Z reason." So
Yeah.
it's fascinating to think about it this way.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with The Boys, right? People have loved that show for 3 seasons, and the fourth season is a little bit on the nose, and they're like, "Wait, they've been making fun of me this whole time? I hate this show. What has this show become?" Right.
I saw somebody do
The
that on
Boys.
TikTok on it was on what's that movie? The one that was Jordan Peele's first movie.
Get Out.
Get Out. So it's the sound where they're laughing. They go, "Wait, is this?" It's a white person like, "Wait, is this? I think about me." Like
Oh,
they realize at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like people
You're
while you're watching
yourself.
Get Out.
that's funny. Man, this conversation has been really good. I feel like we went on a lot of tangents, but they were really good and solid tangents. So I really appreciate you
Yes.
guys coming on. And
Of
guys,
course.
let's finish this off with the same people. So you guys are welcome to
Yeah.
come on next week,
Please.
and then the
Aw,
finale.
thank
let's
you guys.
let's finish it off with you guys because I feel like you guys are awesome, and I love the conversations we're having. I think they're really awesome.
you.
Christine, I think you bring a lot of blind spots for us when you talk about the show, and I love that. And Swara, I love your takes because they sometimes don't agree with mine, and I feel like I love having the back and forth. I love that.
It's great.
We're
It's
not that
great.
far apart on this.
We're not that
Come
far
on,
apart.
yeah.
We're definitely not. We both like the show and we both have critiques,
Yeah.
but they're a little different for different
Yeah.
reasons. I love that. But before we go, please let people know where they can find you. Christine, why don't you go first?
You can find me everywhere on social media at Sinelljay. That's CINELLEJAY. If you want to have a chat, hit me up on Threads. If you want to see me and my mini me, who's in her Targaryen black and red, you can find
Nice.
us on thank you on Instagram, TikTok, and what's up on YouTube.
Oh, that's awesome. Just don't DM her because she doesn't check her DMs apparently.
Listen, okay, that's personal. Keep that up there.
That's right. That's right. And Swara, where can people find you?
You can find me on almost any social media site at Spider Swars. I'm a freelance writer for About Why Though, The Nerds of Color, The New Arab. By the way, I just got Rotten Tomatoes approved individual critics. So
Yes, congratulations.
thank you so
Hey.
much. Yeah. I think I
That's
may
so cool.
be. Thank you so much. I think I might be the first ever Kurdish Rotten Tomatoes critic. So
Solid.
Wow.
Thank you.
I don't care if you are or not. I'm gonna claim it. I'm gonna claim that as you.
Yeah, right?
Until another Kurdish person stops me, I'm gonna keep saying it to you.
Hopefully I'm not the last. Like that would be
Yeah.
very sad.
Hopefully, yeah.
It's like whenever you say you're the first of something, I always say I really hope I'm not the last.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so check out my reviews. That'll be coming more up on the site, and yeah. Oh, and check out my podcast, The Middle Geeks, where we cover anything and everything in Swana and other related media.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And guys, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We are almost at 10,000 followers. So please join us and
Ooh.
check out our YouTube. We're also available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and where else? You can find us on Instagram and also
so many
TikTok.
places.
We're available everywhere. We're Salaam Nerds. We're available everywhere. But also give us a good review because it helps us with the algorithm, and we like the algorithm. So help us out with that. And until next time, guys, Salaam Nerds.
Come chat nerdy
Peace.
things with us.
Take care,
Bye.
y'all.